Hello, my fellow humans. Today we have Victor Felix, a master storyteller and brand expert. Victor's all about helping people through connection and the power of their stories. From building emotional resonance to his famous bourbon chicken strategy, Victor shares actual insights to elevate your brand and sales approach. Let's dive in. Welcome, Victor, to our podcast today.
Man, Justin, so great to be here, man.
I'd love to tell us a little bit more about you as a person, what you're doing and what you're achieving and how you're helping other people.
Yeah, man, most definitely, man. One of the things I love to do, man, is I love to listen to people's stories and I love to help them tell their stories. So for those of you out there who, you're trying to sell your product or service, always remember that selling doesn't start with trying to get people to buy something from you. Selling starts with listening. So when you take the time to listen to people's stories, they're going to tell you how to sell to them. But if you just come off you're just talking, yapping in their face like that, then you're going to have a difficult time selling because you don't know how to. So just take time, listen, ask questions. And like I said, they're going to give you the information that you need in order to sell to them.
I like how you put that. If you just pre-quiet listen, they will tell you how to sell to them. I never really quite put that into perspective before. That's I like that. Can you explain that a little bit more? That's amazing.
Yeah, man. So their state was that?
It makes sense. But I've had a hard time doing that myself.
So Justin, there's stages to this, right? So what you're going to want to do first is you're going to want to start with the personal and then get to the business, right? So just getting to know them a little bit, where they might be from, family, their occupation, what they like to do for recreation or fun, things like that. Just kind of starting to get to know them. What you're wanting to do is the more they're trusting you with personal information is the further you're getting in that sales process, right? So you want to build that emotional resonance first. And one thing I tell people to do, and I'm stealing this from John Maxwell a little bit, but to use the 101% principle, right? So as you're kind of asking questions and finding out a little bit about them and they're sharing that information with you, right? You want to find one thing that you have in common. So use the 101% principle. Find the one thing you have in common and spend 100% of your time on that. Not that you're going to talk about that for hours, but when you find things in common, guess what? They're feeling more, attached to you. You're building more of that emotional resonance.
They open up.
Yeah, they're going to open up more. So now once you built that personal, right? You found the common ground. They've gotten to know you a little bit. You shared a little information about yourself. Now you can get into the business aspect. And one of the first questions you want to ask them is what's your biggest problem right now? What's your biggest headache? Let them talk about their problems and how those original problems are causing more problems in their life. Once they open up about their problems, all you have to do now is this is the secret right here. Repeat the problem back to them.
Ooh.
So if they're saying, man, I'm having trouble with this in my marketing, my website's not converting. Say something like, if I heard you right, you said your website is not converting people into customers. Once you repeat the problem, what that does is it lets them know that you're listening. That's it, right?
I feel that.
Right? And then once you do that, all you have to do now is tell them your solution to that problem.
Ooh, it sounds so simple, but it's sometimes easier said than done. So many of us want to be like, hey, I have this solution. I can help you. But it's like, well, you don't know if they need help with that particular solution you have yet. Like you said, building up to that, finding out what their problem is first, and then seeing if a solution fits their problem instead of doing it the opposite way. That I find so many of us do.
Yeah, that's why it doesn't work.
Why do you think that is? Why we do it that way, so backwards?
Man, I think it's because we want to make money, right? And we're trying to get there as fast as possible. So we just kind of bum rush them with information, and that doesn't work, right? It's like, whoa, back, I barely know you. You know what I'm saying? We just met, right? Stop trying to ask for Here's another thing about selling. Asking for the sale when the first time you meet is like asking for marriage on the first date. your chances of getting a yes are slim to none.
Damn, that perspective is amazing. I'm about to remember that.
Yeah, don't you just meeting somebody and you just had dinner and a movie and you're on your knees with a ring and it's like whoa, like I barely know you, like what's your last name? You know what I'm saying?
That makes so much sense.
You don't want to do that. And so people do that and sell it all the time. Like I'll be in a
yes,
like in a networking event or something like that. And hey, listen, I'm not here to preach at anybody. Like I've had the one, you pitch slapping people, right? I've done it. And nobody wants that, nobody likes that, right? So yeah, man, you just gotta, people don't buy when you want them to, they buy when they're ready.
Ooh, I like that.
So you've got to make that journey, you've got to make that relationship be a nice experience for them.
100%. I see
when
that.
When you're on a date, let's say you get a date with somebody, right? The goal of the first date is not marriage. The goal of the first date is to get to a second date. And after a second date, a third date, and a fourth date, and so on and so on. Guide them nicely through that journey. And before you know it, time to get down on one knee and ask for the sale. And they're more likely to say yes at that point. But you have to give them a good experience on every date, touch point along the journey.
Wow, I like that. It's kind of what you're saying. Give them like little nuggets at a time and don't overwhelm them with much information.
Don't fire hose me with all that stuff.
Yeah, I get that because I see myself doing that many times as well. I'm sure many of our audience does it too.
Yeah.
It seems like it's normal to do, but then how you put that in perspective, it makes sense why it's not working. But then how would you recommend we kind of help change that mindset? Because I know it's something we have to kind of learn and build into. What would you recommend? I mean, some steps that we can take to build that, to like help build that into our way, how we sell, how we do things in life.
That's a great question, Justin. And it's 2 words: bourbon chicken.
Girl. Please explain. I'm hungry right now.
All right. So unfortunately, we're not talking about food, but let's do this, right? So you go to the mall, right? And I'm here in Orlando, Florida, and we have malls, and of course, right? And so you go to the mall, and man, you're not even hungry. You're not even thinking about food. But out of the corner of your eye, you see at the food court, you see that person. They've got the outfit, they got the tray, and they got the little white cups of the sample of bourbon chicken in them, right? Those little samples. Okay. All right. So you say, you know what? Let me just go and have a little piece or whatever. So you go in there, you take it, put it in your mouth. That tastes good. And she says, come, get a plate for $7.99. And before you know it, you done bought some for yourself and the whole family, right? So what she did there was she used the bourbon chicken to get you to the grand buffet. You got to use bourbon chicken in your business. The bourbon chicken is essentially any information you give away for free that solves a problem for them. Okay.
Now, how do you know what information to give them the free without overwhelming them with information?
Well, that's good. Give
all of us, I do that. And so a lot of us do that.
Okay. All right. You can do it in stages, right? So you can start with something small. It could be a downloadable PDF on your website where they can just go in, they give you their email address, and of course, you'll require that email address so you can keep in contact with them, right? So it could be just that. At the end of that PDF, you could have a call to action that says, hey, you want more information on this? I'm doing a webinar on this day at this time. So they come to the webinar, get about anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes of information from you, right? And then you can say, hey, you got more questions for coming to this webinar? Hey, now you can schedule a free consultation. So see how you just funnel them. Yes. So it started with just a downloadable PDF that led them to a webinar, that led them to a consultation. So now that's 3 dates they've had with you. You're very high, like it's highly likely that you're going to be able to close the sale at that point.
I'm still thinking about the bourbon chicken, but from that analogy and you put that together, it makes sense. I never thought about that when I go to the mall. I like how they offer you food. Like I got what they were doing, but never put it into words like that. And it makes sense. They're building that live funnel. Now you're trying to build it on the back end for like your website to get them into that.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Hey,
amazing.
Costco is not giving you food because they want to feed you. They know them samples in the aisle is going to get you to buy more food. That's what it is. They're not doing that. So that's their bourbon chicken.
Ooh, there's a method to that madness.
Yeah, there sure is.
I love how you put that into words like that, though. It really makes the perspective to kind of digest a lot better and understand that. I'm always saying bourbon chicken. Get on the phone call, bourbon chicken, bourbon chicken.
Bourbon chicken, bourbon chicken. Just always be thinking like, where can you lead them next for more information that's going to solve a problem for them? And I would say find something that's like you're really good at. So if you're good at giving keynotes, let it be a keynote. If you're good at doing webinars, let it do a webinars. Podcasts are a form of bourbon chicken.
Ooh, please go on.
Okay. The podcast, right? So if you're bringing, Justin, I've, seen some of your podcasts, right? And you're bringing industry experts that are giving information that solve a problem for people. If you're on podcasts where you're giving information that solves a problem for people, guess what? If Justin comes on, he's talking about cybersecurity, right? And he's giving information that's going to solve a problem for a company. Whoever watches that podcast, they'll be like, man, this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Let me go and check out his website. Man, how do I talk to him more? Oh, he has a link where I can schedule a consultation, right? So always, I tell people this all the time. Bourbon chicken has been the biggest blessing to my business. I can't even tell you, man, how like just having posted like a webinar that I've done on my YouTube page, literally somebody came and they watched the video and they were like, man, they reached out to me. I want to bring you in for a training. Before you know, I'm doing paid training that leads to clients here. So from one piece of bourbon chicken, that's made me thousands of dollars.
That is truly amazing. How long has it taken you kind of build that system, though? I'm sure that you can't build it in one day, right? I mean, does it take time? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, man, you got to build it. Also, like I kind of had to put the pieces together myself and kind of figure that out. But I noticed that like when I would go, like let's say somebody invited me somewhere to speak, right? At an event or whatever, I go and I speak. And once again, I'm giving the bourbon chicken information that solves a problem for people in their branding and marketing. People would reach out to me and be like, all right, this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about. They book a call and then they become a client. So always be dropping your expertise wherever you can. So if you're up there giving a keynote or webinar or whatever, and you're sharing your expertise for a good 35 to 45 minutes, like that's where the sale happens. They're like, man, Justin, like, man, he's an expert. He's smart. He knows how to articulate it well. They're sold right there. So always be dropping those nuggets.
I like how you said that that's where the sell is done right there. I've learned that if you bring the right information, like you say, drop the right nuggets, it kind of sells itself without you having to be salesy or be like, oh, by the way, I'm selling something, cough, cough, It just sells itself in that process. You build it correctly, which is still kind of something I'm learning that I'm sure other people out there are trying to learn also. I know it takes time to pick it up, listening to people like us, trying to figure those things out. From that, how do you kind of build that story or help people build their stories?
Yeah, most definitely, man. So for me, I love personal brand stories. Like I said earlier, I love listening to people's stories and I love helping them put their story together. So story is two things. It's structure and emotion. So you have to have the right structure, right? And then it's kind of like creating a song. I've heard it put like this. It's like creating a song, right? In a song, you have a certain structure and then at certain points, they play certain notes at a certain time that make you feel a certain way.
Yes.
Okay. So it's the same thing in storytelling. And if you want to tell a good personal brand story, really 4 elements. Number 1 is you have the setup. Number 2 is you have the complication. Number 3 is the struggle. And number 4 is the resolution. So in the setup, this is where we're learning who the main character is, kind of like the world of the story. This is kind of like the before person, right? Who are you before your transformation, right? So that's the setup. The complication, or what's known in storytelling as the inciting incident, that's number 2, is essentially the problem you ran into. Everything seemed to be going fine, and then boom, you run into a problem, and it turns your world upside down, right? It just catches you by surprise. So that's the complication. So number three is the heart of the story. This is where you want to spend most of your time. And if you watch a movie is going to be is about 70 to 80% of the struggle. Okay. So the struggle is you're trying to solve this problem, but things are only getting worse. So everything you try to do to solve the problem only makes it worse. And so as the viewers were watching this, it's like, man, how is Justin going to be able to get back to a state of bliss of which he was before this problem encountered, right? That's what we're trying to figure out. So without a struggle, you have no story. And the struggle really is where we start to care about you as the main character. And this is an example I like to use, right? I'm a big basketball fan, grew up watching Michael Jordan. Okay. So people don't realize that, like, before Michael Jordan became a champion, he lost quite a bit, right? We know him for the 6 championships, the 10 scoring titles, the MVPs, the Olympic gold medals, all that stuff. But before he became a champion, he lost. He kept running. This was what, 1988, 89, 90. He lost 3 years in a row in the playoffs to the same team, the bad boys Detroit Pistons. They beat him up. They beat him down. And people were like, yo, Michael doesn't have what it takes to win, right? Yeah, he's a great individual player, but he doesn't use his team. And so people were like, the way he plays, he's not going to be able to win a championship. In 1991, Michael got over the hump, and he finally won the championship when he beat the Lakers in the finals. And he did, en route to that, he did beat the bad boys Detroit Pistons that had beat him the prior 3 years. But this is like what summed it all up. After he wins the championship, he's back in the locker room, and he's holding the trophy, and he has his head up against it like this, and he's crying. And they have like a picture of that. It's one of the most unforgettable sports images. But that was so powerful because of the struggle that he went through, because of losing those last 3 years in the playoffs. And that's what, in a way, endeared people to Michael Jordan. That in spite of those obstacles, in spite of getting beat up and beat down, in spite of losing, he kept coming back stronger and better, and he finally overcame and he won. Got to emphasize that struggle. Okay, all right. So now we're at the climax of the story. Now lastly, number 4 is we're at the resolution. So this is how we see how you've changed from before the problem to now basically your transformation. What lesson did you learn? Lesson or lessons did you learn? What type of person did you become? How is your world different after the struggle than it was before? So this is the most important part of any story, is the transformation. How did the hero or main character change from what they were to who they are now? That's the key. So that's how you tell a good personal brand story.
Damn, that was so powerful. Now you mentioned the struggle is real.
The struggle is real.
I think about back on like all the movies I've watched and stuff. Like, everyone's so into this character about what he's struggling with, and they're waiting to see how he overcomes it. And they're like, woo!
Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. And so I hear people, not to pick on anybody in any space, but it's a lot of times, no, in like the health space, right? It's always that story of, right, I was sick, I tried this product, and now I feel better.
Hallelujah.
Right? And that's great, but what they're missing is the struggle. I need to know what you were trying to do to solve your problem, but it kept getting worse.
It sounds very hollow.
Right? Yeah, without that, it's just, it's very hollow, right? So you want to emphasize that struggle, man. What was that conflict? Specifically the internal conflict. What was going on inside? Like, how were you doubting yourself because you kept failing? How you probably felt like, man, I don't know if I have what it takes.
If you're talking to me.
Right. So these are the little things that make the story interesting, and it keeps people watching, right? If there's no struggle, they cannot keep you in the theater watching that movie for an hour and a half, 2 hours. They can't if there's no struggle.
And I think this
Yeah.
kind of goes with something I heard Alex Ramosi say recently, that if
Mm.
you haven't been through it, you shouldn't be selling it or something like that.
Ooh.
Yeah, people are trying to sell something, but they've never struggled with anything or don't know
Mm-hmm.
how it is, but they're like, oh, but I can still sell this to you. It's fine. They're not going to know the difference kind of thing. I believe
Yeah.
that's powerful from what you said. 'Cause people will
Mm-hmm.
read through
Well, yeah.
that. They'll see that. Where's the struggle at?
One of the
Fine.
best things when you're saying, no, this is good. This is good. I love that.
Yeah.
One of the best things is when you are a product of your product.
Yes.
Like you're a living testimony of it. And that's what's going to help you like really, I mean, like preach it from the mountaintops, because this is something you personally experienced, and
Yeah.
you are like anywhere you go, like I want to let people know about this. And I think you talk about it with more passion and more conviction. And in
Oh,
that way you
100%.
become more believable.
I actually see that in my own life. I'm still trying to figure out how to incorporate my story into what I do, but not necessarily make it who I am. But that
Okay.
makes sense because I mean, I
Expound
always
on that a
try to
little. I think I
separate.
know where you're going there, but talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I went through a struggle,
Mm-hmm.
overdose. I died. I was like you were talking earlier. I went through all those stages of suffering, trying to get to that part of sobriety, and I made it, but then I skipped over and I died, and then trying to use that struggle to overcome my life and get where I am to help to lead myself, to help lead other
Wow.
people, and help other leaders be better leaders, and
Mm-hmm.
incorporating that into how I really have a passion for cybersecurity and healthcare. That's been a little hard for me to kind of figure out to incorporate those things because one's
Okay.
like emotional and one's kind of like a physical, I guess you could say.
Okay. Okay. I got you. I got you. So for you, what I would tell you, Justin, is talk more about the story of what led you into cybersecurity.
Okay. I
That's
actually
like,
know that.
okay, so that's the story you want to tell. Like what led you into, so like when you tried to do it, like did you struggle? Did you fail? What were the problems? What were the obstacles you ran into? Like that's probably the story you want to tell. If your personal story has something to do with that, then talk about that and talk about how that leads into it. Right? So that's how you want to do it. So for like, I tell my story. There's a part of my personal story that leads into what I'm doing in branding right now. Do I always tell that story? No. Because not everybody got time for that, right?
Yeah, it sounds a little weird sometimes. You keep talking about it. I feel like I'm like
Yeah.
reliving it or something.
Yeah. You don't want to talk too much about it. But there are
Yeah.
appropriate moments, man. And let me tell you this, Justin, man. When you tell the story the right way, when you tell your personal brand story the right way, you can sell what you do without having to talk about what you do.
That is powerful, and that's why I keep hearing and trying to understand how to
Mm-hmm.
wrap my mind around.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy,
That's
man, because
powerful.
yeah, like there were times, and I could think of somebody right now. I'll never forget this, right? So I had done a presentation where I did tell my story. And then afterwards, a lady reached out to me and wanted to work with me. And when we got to talking and finding out, hey, like, why'd you want to work with me? And she was like, it was your story. It's like,
Damn.
wow, like that's powerful. And
That
that's not the
human
only time
connection.
that huge, there you go. As it says, business, it's no longer B2B or B2C. For those out there,
No,
business to business
wow,
or business to customer, it's H to
no.
H, human to human. That's the
Ooh,
connection you want to make.
100%. That's why I preach all the time. For
Yeah.
human beings interacting with other human beings, regardless of if we're working or if it's personal, but we're humans connecting to want to interact with other humans and talk with other humans, be around other humans. Those were social creatures that we want to connect with each other. But some of us don't know how to do that. And some of us are still learning how
Well,
to do that.
Justin, I think you live that, man. Like,
Yeah.
just from, us, interacting, getting to know you and stuff like that, you're someone who lives that. So I don't think it's something you have to try hard to do, because I think it just comes from who you are.
I have a learning disability around autism and being on the spectrum. That helps me not to connect sometimes as I need to or my ability to connect. I do have that issue sometimes I'm trying to combat. And it's getting better as I'm learning and talking to people like yourselves, talking with other leaders that helps me put things into perspective, understand getting rid of those limiting beliefs I have. Most of them are just limiting beliefs. Like I have everything I need to be inside me, but learning how to bring that out is the hard thing for not me, but I'm sure other people. We have the power inside us to be who we need to be, but it's bringing the right people to bring out those things at the right time in our life. You know, that's the struggle. But that's the struggle.
I love that, Justin. I love that, man. Man, you just reminded me of, what Vincent van Gogh said. He said, if you hear a voice within you saying you cannot paint, then paint. By all means, paint. And that voice will be silenced. So if you're struggling with something, right, just keep doing it. Keep practicing. As we were talking about before the call, with speaking, right? If you struggle to speak, just keep on speaking. You're going to get better. Just find every presentation or speech that you do, find one thing, just be 1% better, right? If you're 1% better, guess what? You're still better than the last time you did it. And then if you keep doing that over time, eventually you'll be 100% better than when you started. So,
and you just have to start. You have to start. That's how people don't get sometimes. I didn't get that because I was so stressed out. Like, I need this before I can do this. But it's like, if I just started, and as I got going, it just fell into place. And it's just all those skills compounded. And it just made more and more sense. You're going, you have to start. That's how a lot of people have that issue also. They don't know where to start, how to start. Just start. Do something. Talk to a camera if no one there. Something.
Just start. Small wins lead to big. I should say small steps lead to big wins. And what was it said? You don't have to be great to start, but you got to start in order to be great.
Hell yes, 100%. And like you were saying earlier, just starting, that puts you above the 99% of everybody else who's not doing anything, doing nothing. And the bar, like one of my coaches said, the bar is set so low that you just do one thing, you're already above everyone else doing stuff.
Wow.
Becoming great.
Wow. And I never thought of it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because most people aren't doing anything. They don't understand how to build their confidence themselves up to kind of get out of their box that society or they put themselves into, and how to just kind of thrive instead of just existing and living the mundane lives they live every day, but they don't know where they are, for what reason. But the only reason is within themselves to find out.
Wow. Wow. Man, listen, man, when you're walking with purpose, man, then, as you said, you stop existing, you truly start living, right? When you have your why, your purpose, I love that book. A lot of people talk about Simon Sinek, Start With Why. It's so true. When you start with why, man, now you're walking with power and passion, and people will hear that and they will feel it, man. You got to know your why.
100, definitely. I like how you said they will feel that.
They will feel
I believe in the energy 100%.
Yeah.
I feel we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Man.
So within that, we connect, we feel energy, we pick up on it, we sense that. But so many of us kind of disconnected from that. I don't know what that is, and it comes around sometimes, unfortunately.
Man, you know what, man? I feel in life there's certain things that happen to us. And, I know this has happened to me, man, where you go through certain experiences and sometimes it'll cause you to doubt yourself and am I really as good as I might think I am, or people might think I am, and
do it every day.
It makes you take a step back and you kind of step into the shadows a little bit, and you got to kind of reassess. But those times are good, man, because when you take the time to reassess and really think about, all right, who am I really? Where am I going in life? What's my purpose? Man, you come back stronger. What do they say? A setback is only a setup for a comeback.
Ooh,
right?
Dang it.
So, yeah, man, so sometimes you need to, it's like a bow and arrow, right? You just can't put the arrow into the bow and just have it go far, but sometimes you need to be stretched. You need to be pulled. You need to go through challenges. You might have to get fired from that job. your lights get turned off. They repossess your car. They, all kind of things that your spouse leave, whatever the case may be, right? But it's in
trigger
going
the
through that.
entrepreneur in you.
You got to turn. Come on now, you turn on that entrepreneur in you. I love that. Yeah, man. Because if you don't know how to go through that, or Mike Tyson say, everybody got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Oh my God, I just said that recently. Yes.
So if you don't know how to get back up after you take that punch, you're not gonna go far in life. But you gotta
dodge that punch.
Yeah, you could do that too. But one moment or another is the punch that you don't see coming. They say that's always the worst. Ooh. So there's gonna be those times where you get blindsided, and it's like, what you gonna do after that?
I experienced that myself a couple of years back. Those are intense. Cause you're like, like you have to get your bearings. You've lost your focus.
Yeah, mercy.
And you just don't know what's going on. Yeah. I like how you said purpose earlier. That's like the key term there. When people have purpose, they're driven to be better, do better, become better, and achieve better as a human being. And that purpose is but what you choose to be your purpose is very important, because there's a negative purpose and a positive purpose, I feel.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but
yeah, no. There is, man. And some people use it for evil. Some people use it for good, man. But I think success is the byproduct of doing what you were created to do.
Yes.
Like fish don't, and I think this is from Miles Monroe, he says, fish don't attend swimming lessons. Why? Because swim is built into the fish. Birds don't go to flight school because flight is built into the bird. So you are truly being successful, a fish in water or a bird in the air, when you're doing what you were created to do.
Ooh,
to me, that's true success.
That really is. I like how you said that. It reminds me of how if you judge a fish on how its ability to climb a tree or something like that, it goes, then that fish not going to succeed.
Yeah, that's Albert Einstein said that. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will believe its whole life that it's stupid or something like that.
Yeah, and that's the same thing you said. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But it seems like we do that to ourselves a lot. We allow society to do that to us, people around us. And you have to be careful who you have around you, too, because you can't bring everyone with you. They're not going to want to come with you when you have a bigger purpose in life. They can hold you back if you're not careful. And I always say, too, there's like 3 different kinds of people. The people that think inside the box, outside the box, and people that know the box does not fucking exist.
Mercy.
Yeah. And I feel the social construct, it doesn't exist. We put ourselves into that, and we downgrade our gifts and our purpose so much.
Yeah, man. It's unfortunate that happens, man. But one of the best things, man, is when you can just have good people in your life. People who listen. I was blessed, man. I was so fortunate that I just had a lot of good people around me that saw the gifts in me and helped nurture that. And so I always tell people, man, I grew up around some of the greatest like adults and people that you will never hear about, because they did things for me that they didn't want the praise, they didn't want the glory, they didn't need their name in lights, they didn't need a plaque or anything like that. They just did it because it was the right thing to do. Yeah, those are the real heroes, man. And man, those are people, man, I revere and just honor in my life, man. And as I'm getting older, man, people, those people who I grew up with, they were up there when I was a kid, man. And now they're starting to pass away. I'm going to quite a few funerals, but man, it's those are some of the greatest people, man.
Life is truly a blessing.
Yeah, sure is.
And very fast.
Yeah.
As I always say, we gotta really find that purpose and find things we love to do with our life. Life is so short. You're not promised tomorrow. You could be 30 and die in 30 seconds. You could be 80 and you won't die for another 30 years.
Wow.
Don't know.
Yeah.
You always try to control that. People don't take time seriously. It's a very valuable commodity, I believe. Very valuable.
You're speaking truth right now, man. What was it? Yesterday is history. Tomorrow's a mystery. Today is a gift. That's why we call it the present.
Hallelujah.
So we got to make the most of every day, every moment, man. So, man, I appreciate that reminder, man. Yeah, so true.
It is. Like, I've already looked at life and death so differently. But that's time for another story. Those are both very beautiful things to happen to us as
Yeah,
humans.
yeah,
We live, we
most
die.
definitely.
It's both very beautiful.
Hmm.
Moment of silence for those people. Victor, I wanna thank you coming on here today. Before we wrap up, I'd love to know if there's anything you'd like to leave our audience with, how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, sure, man. I'll say a couple ways. I am on a LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn at brand strategist Victor Felix. Would love to connect. I would love to hear your story and possibly share mine with you, and we could connect that way. You can also go to my website, communityleadershipnetworkus.com. Go and check me out there. We have some stories there, so like I said, go and check it out. And also on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. That's at Brand Strategist Victor Felix. So go check out some videos there. I think I just dropped one today. And so, yeah, hopefully you can see some bourbon chicken that you like.
Oof. That was such a good one. If they want to build their brand stories, anything, any little nuggets you can leave them, how to get started to do that?
Yeah, man, most definitely. So a good way to like really think about your brand stories to find that first find that turning point in your life. Like, what was that moment you went from black and white to color? I mean, the lights came on, like you went from before to after. What was that moment? Once you find that moment, right? Now you start building it with the whole setup, the complication, the struggle, the resolution. But that's probably going to be the most emotional to you and probably the most interesting to your audience, that turning point, because it's something that really is going to hook the audience. So yeah, think about what was that turning point in your life that you just went from black and white to color. You after this moment, you were just a completely different person. And you're like, I'm never going back to who I was before because this new person is just on a whole nother level. Right. So just, yeah, guys, find that turning point and start your brand story from there. Start building up with your setup, complication, resolution, struggle, and resolution. And yeah, feel free to reach out and share your story with me.
Awesome. Thank you, Victor. And for everybody, you don't have to die like me to find that struggle. That was like a one-off thing, okay? It doesn't have to be that crazy.
My man, Justin, you made quite, talking about a setback being a setup for a comeback. You made quite the comeback, right?
Lived, died, and bam, big ram, bam. Thank you, ma'am.
Mercy, you, man. Hey, the smoke cleared and you're still here, brother.
Right? And I find it more painful to go back than forward.
Never
And that's
going
what
back.
I needed to feel. It has to be
Never
more
going back.
painful.
Wow. But man, you know
Been
what, man?
there.
That's what
Yes,
made you who you are to now, man. You probably wouldn't have
it
the
did.
energy and the life and the passion, right? But look what you came out better on the other side. So
I really did.
the trial, the trial or the struggle is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to improve you.
100%. Because before I had that happen, I was struggling to be like, something has to change. What has to change? Why can't I make this happen? Why can't I do this? What am I missing? It was so stressful and it's ridiculous. And then I died from all the issues. I came back and it was just so clear. I'm like, I know my purpose now. I know I need to help other people with this too. I
Look
know
at
what
you.
that. It was just so, it radiated so many different colors. And I saw different colors. I died too. But
Man, oh man, I love it. I love it.
yes. Well, thank you again, Victor. I appreciate you coming on
Thank you,
here.
man.
Yes. So we jumped around a little bit, but that's what editing is for.
Yeah.
Well, you have a good rest of your day, and thank you again.
Likewise, man. It was great to be here with you today, man.
Thank you. You too, Victor. Bye.